There's a problem with photography education that we need to address. And hopefully in this video, I'm going to show you how to differentiate between a good photography course and a not so good photography course or workshop or, online training, in-person trips, travel trips, whatever. There are some big issues that I've seen for a number of years, and I want to address them in this video. First of all, I want to talk about my background. If you've been watching this channel for a while, you know I used to run a comedy school. I taught improv for many years. When I started teaching improv, I was bad at it. I was not a good teacher, but I was determined to become a great teacher. So what I did was I spent time studying teaching methodologies. When I was young, I was in a gifted program. When I got to university, in third year university, I couldn't finish my exams in time. And I remember talking to my organizational behavior and human resources professor about not having enough time to finish the exam. And she said, "I think you might have a learning disability." And I said, "I don't know. I was in the gifted program." And she said, "Then you more than likely have a learning disability." So I went and got tested, and turned out my reading speed and comprehension in third year university was at a grade 9 level, but my visual acuity was greater than 99.9 percentile. They never tested anyone like me. I was visually off the charts, but from a reading standpoint, reading text, it's very difficult for my brain to process that. And in business courses, a lot of your exams are case studies. So you have to read a case study and then answer like essay form questions on case studies. My brain takes text and puts it into the form of a movie, makes everything visual so that I can see what's happening. When I started teaching, I was aware of my learning methodology. My learning style is very visual. I learned from seeing something done and then being able to analyze it and figure it out, break it down to its component parts, and then be able to recreate it and understand what the component parts are doing, which is important. So I learned that I was a visual learner, but I learned that the other people are kinetic learners. Kinetic learners have to be moving. Other people are doers. They have to do the thing in order to actually figure it out. Some people can read something and they'll be able to figure it out from reading, and other people are auditory learners. So that when I started teaching, I was like, okay, I need to address kinetic learners. I need to address visual learners. I need to address people who need text. I need to address people who are auditory learners. And so I made sure that all of our classrooms had whiteboards so we could write things out, important things in text, but we could also make diagrams to show the visual learners. But then at the end of every workshop, there was also a brief period of recap. I see a lot of photography workshops from people who do not understand how to teach different sets of people. A lot of people offering workshops that are just, watch me do this thing, and that's it. I've seen people complaining on Facebook recently about how they went to a workshop and they weren't given an opportunity to actually participate. Their fee for the workshop was actually just paying for the instructor to work on developing their own test shoots, to pay for their test shoots. And that's not fair. It's not fair to the students. So I want to address a number of problems that I see. And the first and biggest is people who are teaching how to create a finished product. I see a lot of instructors selling lighting patterns, which is, can be good for some people to learn to see how, have diagrams to see how things are structured, but they don't teach why lights are placed in certain places. They just say, here's how to do it. They don't teach why you should do things in a specific way, or why they do things in a specific way, not why you should do something the way I do something. That's not a good way to teach. I can teach you why I do something and hopefully teach you to think about what it is you're trying to do and the result you're trying to get, and think about the process it takes to get there, instead of just saying that's how you should do it. If we look at Peter Hurley's F-Stoppers video, once Peter Hurley's F-Stoppers video came out, suddenly we saw a plethora of people photographing headshots like Peter Hurley did. I did. This is, cutting in here, cropping in tight to the head, plain white background. But I also took the idea that this is how headshots should be done. And I tried to impart that onto other people. What I want people and what I want you, and I think other photographers who are learning and studying and taking courses, and what I want teachers to be doing is teaching intent, teaching people this is why I do something, and this is how doing it this way produces this result. And changing things will adjust and produce a different result. Doesn't mean one is wrong or one is better than the other. It just means that making changes produces variations. But when F-Stoppers video came out for Peter's headshots, and then the F-Stoppers video came out about cinematic headshots. Suddenly everyone was doing cinematic headshots in Dylan's style, right? You know, taking a light and a reflector and going out to a park and shooting at 200 millimeters. You just started to see that over and over and over. And the problem is when you're teaching how to create a product instead of a process, you create a lot of homogeneity and replication. You teach people how to replicate a result instead of understanding what it takes to create that result and what's happening when you do that and why you might want to do that. And then this can also lead to market saturation, having a lot of photographers creating a lot of the same and similar work. There are a number of headshot photographers in my area who shoot headshots on white, headshots on gray, headshots on black. And that's it. That's all they do. We want to teach people to be thinkers instead of replicators, because that allows photographers to explore and create images in their own style and voice. If you don't have differentiators, it's very difficult to separate yourself from everyone else. If your images are the same as another photographer's images and another photographer's images, and all of you are interchangeable, the only differentiator then becomes price. And so when a client is looking at images and saying, well, I have all of these three options, they all look the same, except option B is the cheapest, why wouldn't they go with option B? So then when we're teaching people to replicate a product instead of teaching them a process, what we're doing is we're not giving them the tools they need to succeed. We're giving them a hammer, and then they think everything is a nail. Doesn't allow them to adapt to changing client needs. My background in improvisation allows me to be able to adapt and change and be flexible. And those are the skills that I think we need to teach photographers is teach them to understand what the light is doing, why the light is doing it, how the distance and modifiers that they're putting on are changing the results. You know, if there's a power outage and you can't power your lights, how do you still get the job done? If you're not insured, you can't afford to reshoot. That's going to cost you thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars. I implore you as a photo educator to start teaching people process. Focus on process, not product. If you're a teacher who does not understand teaching methodologies, I would love for you to just dig in. Don't ask ChatGPT. Go to Google, look at teaching methodologies, understand the different types of learners, learn about the different kinds of ways that people learn. How do their brains work? If you have a course, or if you're developing a course, how do you implement these learning methodologies in your instructional design so that the courses you're offering help everybody? They don't just serve one type of person. Study different teaching methodologies. Look at the studies that are coming out that show how different people are learning. The other key consideration is that when we're teaching photography courses, we're typically not teaching them to children. So you have to also look at, it's more critical to look at teaching methodologies for adults. People over 25, their brains are sort of fixed. There's not a lot of neuroplasticity anymore. So we have to understand adults may take more time, they may take more work, it may take saying the same thing in many different ways for them to be able to get the point and for them to understand what it is that you're trying to convey. If you're teaching workshops in person, you also need to work at providing feedback for individual people. Take a look at what they're doing. Don't just set the lights up for them, have a model, and then have them point their camera. They're not learning anything from that. I don't want to go to a workshop and everyone's done all the lighting and everything for me. You're not assessing my work. You're not looking at why am I shooting at the focal length I'm shooting at? Why am I shooting at the f-stop I'm shooting at? Why is my shutter speed like this? Why is the distance from the subject to the light this amount of space? Why are we putting the light in behind the subject instead of in front of the subject? You know, what are the different reasons that we could be doing different things? Look at individual people, provide individual feedback. I implore you. In terms of online learning, we don't really have, if you're doing one-to-many courses, you don't really have that opportunity to provide feedback unless you're teaching cohort-based courses. You need to be able to look at an image and assess what is their objective and were they able to accomplish that objective as well. What I would love to know from you, please put it in the comments below, is what kind of learner are you? What kind of things do you feel are missing from the photography education space currently? Thank you for watching. Check out the next video that pops up. It really helps me out. Thanks very much. Take care.